Hello there and welcome to Mythic Shadowmoon Burial Grounds. My name is Tuskeh and in this video we are going to go over the Shadowmoon Burial Grounds on its Mythic difficulty, discussing what's changed, what hasn't, and offering suggestions for improvement during the public testing process. Before we begin, it's important to note that the content you are about to see is work in progress, and anything can change before this hits live servers. Indeed, I expect it to. Now let's get started. So this first pack has a lot of health, I have to say. Maybe our DPS was fairly low, and in fact, one of our DPS was absent here, so that might have had something to do with it. But it seems like a lot of the mobs in this instance have a lot of health, which is good. I'm glad for that. Maybe this is a taste of what we can expect in the other dungeons, which is good. But other than that, there's not really any mechanics to speak of that are notable here. The Shadowmoon Bone Mender has a Shadow Mend that you should probably interrupt, but that's not really too big a deal. And it doesn't seem like the skeletons that are patrolling with her don't actually do anything, which is a bit of a shame. I'd like to see them actually do something, maybe put a dot on the tank or something like that. Just something. Actually do something. If it was doing anything, I didn't notice it as the healer. So that's a bit of a shame. Now, moving on, we just avoid this void spawn on the left here, and it actually ambushes us just after we pull this group here. Now, these defiled spirits don't seem to do much. Here I stand on a rune to see how much damage it does. It deals about 120k, which is pretty hefty, and you can see there in the background the void spawn has aggroed and things start to get pretty hairy. Now, the void pulses that it does deal a lot of damage to the group. A lot of damage, and I'm very happy about that. It should be doing a lot of damage, and those are very dangerous, which is great. I'm glad they are continuing the theme of the void spawns being absolutely horrible, so it's good that that's there. Now, for the rest of it, these defiled spirits don't seem to do much, and the Shadowmoon kind of mystic that is currently dead right now does that orb that no one got hit by, so that didn't seem too much of a big deal. Really, it's just about these void spawns, and that's only because we pulled one by accident. This defiled spirit trash pack would be really easy without the void spawn interfering, so I'd like to see them actually do more stuff, you know? Even if it's just more damage, because right now it doesn't feel very dangerous at all. Then you have the corpse spiderlings, which I'm not even going to mention because they don't do anything. They're really easy. And then some more, which we'll ignore. Moving on, we have a Bone Mender and 3 more of these reanimated ritual bones. Again, it's only the Bone Mender who does anything that I've noticed, and the ritual bones just kind of sit there and hit the tank. So I'd like to see them do more stuff. Now, interestingly, down here, the 2 Void Spawn don't seem to be here, which is interesting to say the least. That does seem like an interesting Mythic change. I would have them there on Mythic, but that's just my opinion. I mean, you have to fight 2 of them just before Ner'zhul anyway. So here we have Sadana Bloodfury, the first boss of the dungeon. Now, she hits very hard, she deals okay tank damage, and she does a lot of raid damage with this Whispers of the Dark Star, and it's a fairly intense fight to heal, although I didn't really struggle too much once I got into the swing of it. Now, in terms of new mechanics, you can see her Dark Command here. I'd like to see the Defiled Spirit that she summons and kind of drags towards her. I'd like to see it become an ad, like once you kill it or something. Like if it reaches her and empowers her, and if you kill it, it instead becomes an ad that you have to kill again. So I think that would be pretty cool. It could be just like the Trash Pack Defiled Spirits. I'd like to see that happen. Additionally, I'd like to see some more stuff happen with these runes on the floor. I'd like to actually see the nasty runes on the floor go onto the good runes, so that when you had to jump into them for Dark Eclipse, you'd take a lot of damage first. So the healer would have to heal you up, and then you'd have to jump in, take the damage, and then you'd be fine. So it would just be a little something extra to have for the Mythic mode. Other than that, I think this fight is fine. There's a lot of damage going around, and you see we actually lose someone here to the damage that's going around. I would increase our health very slightly, although I'm not entirely sure if our DPS was strong or not, because, again, I'm not using recount, because it's the PTR, and I don't want to really jeopardize my recording in any kind of way, and add-ons have been known to break on PTRs. But that is Sadana Bloodfury, an enjoyable, if not too difficult fight. Next up, we have all of these Shadowmoon Ritualists, or these enslavers, as they're called, and this is where I encountered something that was really nasty. They would do this rend soul kind of debuff, but for multiple casts, they only targeted it on one person, and that person took a load of damage. And if this is how it's supposed to be, and the tank didn't just mass pull, which I think she didn't, and you see you actually lose someone there because the damage is so high, this is how it's supposed to be. That's great. I'd love to see them all target someone like that. And you'd have to see about maybe interrupting them, because once we interrupted a couple of them, but not the others, they started spreading them out and it wasn't so nasty. So kind of doing the AoE mass kind of grip and stun and interrupt stuff, it would kind of screw you over, which would be cool. I'd like that. Now moving on to the Shadowmoon Exhumers here. Once we actually aggroed her, she does this Exhume the Crypts thing, and it didn't actually exhume the crypts next to us, but that was just because she kind of moved away from her crypt, which was a bit of a shame. But anyway, these exhumers don't do too much. They have a pretty hard-hitting void bolt, but that didn't cause too many issues, and really this was all fine. And the spirits, again, that they summon, the spirits in here don't seem to be doing very much. They don't really have any kind of mechanics, which is a shame. I'd like to see them do something, maybe some kind of breath attack, like a void breath. I think that would be cool. It could be like Nhalish's one, so that would be pretty cool. Moving on to Nhallish, and you'll notice the tank actually pulled him while we were finishing off some of these exhumed spirits. Now, he has his standard rotation of abilities where he does the Void Blast in front of him, which you can see here. Then he has his teleport, dragging people to him and dealing a bunch of damage. And then after that, he rips everyone's spirits, and you have to kill your ad, and then click on the glow to make yourself respawn. And curiously, when everyone is in that phase, they seem to take a lot of damage, which is interesting. And then after that, he does the Void Devastation. So that kind of little rotation is fine. The only time where I felt like I was in any kind of danger was when I was the first to get out of my spirit phase, which was interesting to say the least. It was a bit worrying, but people eventually started coming along, and a couple of people got really close to dying, but they were able to just about survive it. Now, what I'd like to see in this is for him to do like another kind of phase. I like the idea of him doing that combination of his with the 4 different abilities, but in really quick succession. So what he could do is he could pull you into the void, just like have it be like a filter of some kind, and you're all slowed and you're all taking damage or something like that. And then he does his void breath, the teleport and the pull, then the spirit steal, and then the void devastation, all in really quick succession. And you'd have to actually handle them almost all at the same time. And I think having a really intense part of the fight like that would be quite cool. Because other than that, Nhallish isn't really hard. There's only that bit where you're dealing with the spirits, and you have to get yours before it runs off, and that's really kind of it. Moving on, we have some more Exhumers and some Enslavers and some Spirits, which again don't do anything. These trash packs didn't feel all that dangerous, although we did have a couple of the Enslavers, which means we had more of those Soul Tears, or Soul Rends, whatever it is, and that dealt a lot of damage. That was the only real time I felt like I was in any kind of pressure in these trash pulls, but that's fine, and we can move on. We then head into the Pools of Reflection, where we face the Plagued Bats and the Corpse Spiders. Now, we kept these interrupted and stunned because in Heroic they hit very hard, and we didn't actually have any problems with them until we got downstairs, where the Corpse Spiders were allowed to cast a few of their Death Venoms and their Necrotic Bursts, and the tank started chunking really hard, and I'm glad that they take so much damage, because we did mass pull here, and I'm just glad that we got punished for it, so that's great. I'm just very happy that these guys do a lot of damage, and I wouldn't really change them. They do a lot of damage, maybe increase the damage of their auto attacks, because when they're not bursting, there's not really anything to do. So, as a healer anyway, that's the only thing I'd change about them. Then moving on, we have these Bone Worms and some more Plagued Bats. Now, on the PTR, people had a lot of lag, and when the Body Slam came in, we did have quite a few people get hit by it. So, was a bit of a shame. We lost the Warrior there, who got knocked off to the side, and then we actually lose our Death Knight tank, and things get a bit hairy, because she dies under the water with the Plague Bats killing her. So it just kind of delayed us more than anything else. I wouldn't really change anything about this. I think it's all fine. Step out of the Body Slam, and you're all good. But, I mean, yeah, other than that, everything's fine. Moving on to Bonemaw now. Now, the first thing I'd like to see here in this fight is making the worms that he spawns, the ads, make them appear at the start of the fight rather than in the middle of it, which would be cool. And I'd like to see some kind of mechanic where they use their body slams right after Bonemaw has finished inhaling. So if you were standing in the pool of tar and then started moving as soon as you saw the body slam on you, you wouldn't get out fast enough. So what you have to do is you'd have to leave the pool, let Bonemaw's inhale pull you a little bit, and then you'd be out of range of the body slams. I think that would be kind of cool. But as it stands, the inhale actually killed quite a few members of the group, but Bonemaw has such a small amount of health here that we killed him shortly afterwards. So that kind of sucked. As you can see here, I actually end up all by myself, panicking a little bit, but the people do manage to return, and I avoid the many body slams that pop up. And Bonemaw's got such low health at this point that we just ignore the ads. And I think that's a bit of a shame. I'd like to see Bonemaw have some more health, and for those ads to appear at the beginning of the fight rather than so close to the end of it, even with one DPS dead and that big break where everyone got knocked off to the side. In the time it took for him to inhale everyone, we'd nearly killed him. So that's what I'd like to see on that fight. Moving on, we have 2 Corpse Spiders and a Plagued Bat. We did a little bit of coordination ahead of the time just to make sure that we didn't take too much damage from all of them, and everything was fine. Actually, there's 2 Plague Bats there. I didn't notice that other one on the side. But yeah, generally the burst is only really a problem when the stacks of the Plague Bats dot get too high and the Corpse Spiders do their different abilities. As long as you interrupt or stun them, everything's just fine. And then after that, you have the really, really, really nasty pull of the Void Spawn. Now, these 2 Void Spawn at the same time, I think are... it's a very intense fight because you have to get some interrupts out, and if you don't, then the group takes an awful lot of damage. And I had to use a lot of cooldowns here, and I'm glad that I did. I'm really glad that I did, because once we get through our interrupt rotation and we start taking consistent Void Pulses, people get chunked very fast. And I'm glad that that Void Pulse does so much damage, because it definitely gives me something to think about, and with gear spiking up as fast as it is, it actually lets me put that to good use, and I'm really happy with where that Void Pulse damage is standing. Then we move on to Ner'zhul, and I actually noticed mid-cinematic that the group has pulled without me, so I quickly cancel the cinematic and get in. Now, this fight is pretty easy. There's only really one really intense part of the fight, which you'll probably see in just a bit. Now, the kind of damage he does isn't too high, especially when you get away from the pulsing kind of shadow runes on the floor that he does. And the Malevolence obviously deals a lot of damage, but you can step out of it. Now, this is where things got very hectic, because obviously we don't have things like DBM warning the DPS of when to focus on the Ritual of Bones. So here I'm very quickly trying to deal some damage to them, and it gets pretty close. We only barely just managed to kill it. We lose a DPSer to the kind of trail behind them, and at the very last second we are able to kill the Ritual of Bones and move through. We take a couple of big hits from that Shadow Rune on the floor, but we just managed to get out in time. So in terms of new mechanics on this fight, I'm happy with where the Ritual of Bones is right now. People would get on it faster with things like DBM and when they're actually paying attention and they're not tired. But new mechanics, I'd like to see him make all but one of the Ritual of Bones skeletons immune to damage, so only one of them would be able to be damaged. I think that would be really intense. You could have some kind of pattern to it so that people would be able to predict which one was going to be vulnerable to damage, which would be good. I'd also like to see him do some kind of mechanic maybe after the Ritual of Bones ends, where he summons a Void spawn. I'd love to see him summon a Void spawn, because that would just be awesome, where maybe he doesn't have as much health as the ones in the trash, but it would definitely be as dangerous. So the idea is he summons the Void spawn, quick, kill it as quickly as you can, otherwise you're in a lot of trouble. So I think that would be really cool, and you could even add an achievement that says, kill Ner'zhul without killing a Void spawn. That would be an achievement. But yeah, that's what I'd add to the Ner'zhul fight, because I think it could use an add, and maybe a Void spawn would be pretty cool. Have it maybe appear in the center of the room and just try and cast Void Pulse. Maybe also one final thing, make Malevolence leave something on the ground, like some kind of pool. I think that would be kind of cool. But, I mean, other than that, that's the Ner'zhul fight. It was pretty intense, because mostly we buggered up the Ritual of Bones. And Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, pretty good. It still needs new mechanics, and I think that it's going to be pretty fun. But overall, I think that it should make for a very good Mythic dungeon. But that concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you the best of luck in the world of Warcraft.